Welcome to the Filmcast review of How to Train Your Dragon 2025. How should we note it? Like the live action one, we need to explain.
This time in live action form.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from IMDb. As an ancient threat endangers both Vikings and dragons alike on the Isle of Berk, the friendship between Hiccup, an inventive Viking, and Toothless, a Night Fury dragon, becomes the key to both species forging a new future together. End quote. Now, I think we've had a pretty mixed history with these live action remakes. They have been frequently not great. And so I was very nervous about this one. Is this going to be a bastardization of everything we know and love from the original animated film? Devindra Hardawar, do you think this movie added anything to what we know of How to Train Your Dragon, or was it a waste of time?
I think this movie is absolutely toothless.
Wow.
Yeah. Because to answer your question, no, it adds nothing. It adds nothing from the anime movie. Like, this is a perfectly fine. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. This is a perfectly fine adventure movie for kids, right? Because it is doing note for note what a great adventure movie for kids already did. It's kind of cool to get some, real world views of the island of Berk, and I think the flying sequences look good, because how can that not be thrilling? But this movie just feels like we're doing this all again. The original movie is 15 years old. What are we doing here? What are we doing looking at a live action note for note remake of a thing that was already great and we all liked and already had 2 sequels as well? I don't know, guys. I don't know. I've been, have you guys read the book Amusing Ourselves to Death? The Neil Postman book?
No, but I'm aware of it, yeah.
I'm thinking of that book a lot these days. I'm rereading it now. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, we are tumbling, our world is on fire. We are tumbling into so many bad things. And what we do with hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't know how much this movie cost, at least $100 million, right?
Yeah.
But what we do with all this money and all this talent is just do a thing that was done already. It was done incredibly well. There's no chance you can do it as good as it was done before, but we're going to do it again anyway. And maybe we'll make some money. Maybe we will earn some returns for our investors, right? Like, this was a whole waste of effort, but we made some profit. And this movie just made me feel a certain way. Like, I think it is perfectly fine. The story is perfectly fine. The actual flaws with the film come down to, I think, the lead. I think Mr. Mason Thames is miscast, because he is no Hiccup. Okay, the voice of Hiccup was
Jay Baruchel.
Jay Baruchel in like Undeclared. Jay Baruchel, when he was on TV in the 2000s, that's how I imagine Hiccup. Skinny dude who has no right trying to be a dragon fighter or whatever. Mason Thames looks like he plays lacrosse. He looks like he plays rugby.
Wow.
Dude works out. The entire point of How to Train Your Dragon is that Hiccup never really fit in. He never really belonged. You have a dad like Gerard Butler looking at you being like, you're a disappointment. You look at Mason Thames like, buddy, when's the game? Because you're ready. You're ready for whatever I have at you. So I think he is a problem. Also kind of a charismatic black hole to me. He's just not Hiccup. And I feel like this movie could have used a scrawnier kid, somebody who you could kind of believe would be in this situation. So I think that part rings false to me. And just the act of doing this all over again and not adding much new to it. Like, there are some more scenes, like you spend a little more time with the grown-ups. I think Astrid gets a little more character development. I really like Nico Parker, but what are we doing here? Why are we here right now? Why aren't we looking at, like, why don't we try to, like, reboot How to Train Your Dragon as another thing? Why not bring the original back to theaters? Let people watch that in 3D or whatever. Give it an up-res or something, a new Atmos mix. There's so many things we could be doing here. And I feel like this is the laziest and the most, like, wasteful way of reapproaching this franchise. But hey, at least Gerard Butler is having fun. He is having a lot of fun in this movie, and he's entertaining because he is literally stoic in real life. So, we get that. But man, I feel like this is a huge waste of time and effort and money for a serviceable adventure movie.
Bleak.
Bleak.
Jeff Kanata, Your thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon live action remake?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake are best summed up in the form of a limerick. So, what do you want me to say? It's the same in a slightly new way. There's nothing created, just regurgitated with Hiccup and Astrid cosplay.
Ooh.
I agree with everything Devindra said.
High five.
High five. Here's the thing. I actually think this is the best this could have gone.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For what they are attempting to do,
Mhm.
the movie actually does it well.
Mhm.
I think if your goal is to create a shot-for-shot live-action remake of this excellent movie, they accomplished it. And I think, I got to see this in IMAX. There's sequences where it full frames into the IMAX aspect ratio. A lot of those sequences are the flying sequences, and those are awesome. They're awesome. You feel like you're enveloped in that moment, but I felt like that with the animated version too. I loved the flying sequences in the animated version. I felt like I was flying alongside Hiccup and Toothless there. So, and I think the final act of this movie where everything crescendos and it gets to this huge scale, they pull that off. It is amazing, but it's kind of, I think we've gotten to the point in visual effects where that isn't impressive anymore. That's not the fact that you can do this thing that you could only ever do as a cartoon. You can now do it photorealistic, I think is less impressive than it maybe once was. And though that sequence works and the whole movie works and everything's fine, I also agree that the lead, Mason Thames, is miscast. I think he's too hunky. Like I think Hiccup is supposed
His jaw
to
is too sharp. He's
Yes,
got
that's
cheekbones.
right. He's a
got
hunk.
muscles. What's
like
going
that's
on?
not. I can't blame the kid for being a hunk, but he's a hunk.
And he was the kid from the Black Phone, and maybe he was scrawnier when they initially cast him, but like dude worked out. Something happened.
I think he's doing kind of a Jay Baruchel voice.
Yes.
Like he's channeling the Hiccup voice, and I think effectively. But at no point do I think this kid is misplaced in the Viking society, right? At no point do I feel like, well, there's this scrawny, clumsy kid. He's just, he's got the cool hair and he's got the cool jawline, and he I don't know. So in that sense, it kind of misses the mark, and I agree with Devindra. But the bigger point is, what's the point? The bigger point is what. Now, that said, I took my kids to this. They have seen the animated version, and they loved it. They loved the experience of watching this. So I guess, huzzah. But there is no universe where I'm in the mood to see How to Train Your Dragon. I'm in the mood for the family to sit down and rewatch How to Train Your Dragon, and we're going to pick the live action one. It's just never going to happen. And, there's a long history of doing a new Hamlet, a new, the restaging of a thing, doing a thing. But there's always a take, right? The whole point is, what is this take on that classic material? This movie doesn't have a take. It's just this weird, can we do it? Can we do it? And I don't think that is an interesting question anymore. Because as I said, as we've gotten to with visual effects, the answer is always yes. If you throw enough money at it, you can do it. You can make whatever visual you want to make these days. There's no guessing about whether it's going to, can we visualize a real human person on the back of a dragon? Yeah, you can. Not surprising. We see it on TV. It's not impressive. So like, maybe if we want to revisit this classic material, maybe we have a take. Maybe we infuse some new energy into it rather than just give us a faithful retelling of the same thing that's available to all of us to watch right now. And ultimately, like 2/3 of the way through this, I just kind of felt sad.
Yeah.
Because it just, like you said, Devindra, it's so much energy and money and effort and talent. And I agree. It's awesome to see Gerard Butler doing the character, but it's almost like I heard him aping himself.
Yes.
I heard him like, I just had this image in my mind of him in his house watching the animated version and remembering how he delivered that line and being like, okay, I got to say it just like that again. You know what I mean? It's not.
He could be making us another Den of Thieves right now. What are you doing, Gerard Butler?
That's right. He could be doing Plane 2.
Plane 2.
Still Plane.
Yes.
Still Plane.
So yeah, I mean, my kids had a great time. My son walked out and said, I liked it better than the animated one. But I feel like that's just kid enthusiasm for, hey, that was big and loud.
Yeah.
You know, it was the first time my kids had ever seen an IMAX movie too. So
that's cool.
Impressed.
Yeah.
It's just, I think the costumes are weird. It does feel like cosplay through the whole thing for me. The Astrid wig did not work at all for me. It felt like everybody is just doing this sort of puppetry of, we got to try to make it as much like the cartoon as we can instead of adding anything. And to me,
every morning everybody got together and was like, guys, this is for DreamWorks. DreamWorks needs money.
Yeah.
DreamWorks only has so many franchises, right? So we gotta make this work. You see Disney over there? You see them with their live action remakes? You see those Sonic movies? We need this to work for DreamWorks.
It felt like every morning the actors in their trailer had to watch the scene they were about to shoot and try to do it exactly like that. And it's just like that, just devoid of creativity. It just felt like it sucked out all the energy and made this thing that's just sort of slavish and uninteresting. But also, if you're going to do it like this is the best version I can imagine. It's like, it's not bad. It's just not interesting.
Well, guys,
do it. I saw your tweet, so
I liked it quite a bit. I liked it quite a bit.
I mean, you love this franchise. You love these movies. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
But let me try to, obviously not going to convince you, but let me try to articulate exactly why I think it's good. So first of all, I would say that I agree. This is the best case scenario. I have seen many of these live action remakes. In my opinion, this is the best one. But I agree with a lot of your complaints.
Of all of them?
Of all of them, yeah, I would say.
What's a better one, Devindra? I don't know if there is a better one.
That's true, I guess. I have to think about it.
Where I will agree with you is that in my mind, the looks and the costuming of this movie for the human characters largely did not work. It largely looks like they're cosplaying. I think Scott Mendelson referred to it as it feels like How to Train Your Dragon on ice.
Yes,
like a kind of cheap simulacrum of the original in some ways. And I'm kind of. It feels like they tried to recreate the outfits from the animated film, as opposed to thinking, what is a logical outfit that feels organic in this world that would make sense.
Right.
And so that really did not work for me. You know, I just think very few of the characters look right. Maybe Nick Frost's character probably worked the most for me.
Very impressive how they were able to pull off Cobble as a live action character. I mean, amazing. And Nick Frost is awesome in that part, I think. But even his mustache looked uncomfortable the whole time. But the missing limbs was very impressive, I thought.
Yeah. So that was probably the character that worked the most, and none of the other characters really worked that much in terms of how they looked, particularly the main characters. That said, it is really remarkable that Toothless, he looks identical to the original, but they make him convincingly a live action creation. I think.
I disagree.
Okay, well, I think he fits into the live action environment in a way that is convincing, and in my opinion, the biggest changes in terms of the shot composition are in the action scenes. In the original animated film, when you watch the movie, it's these very controlled camera movements, right? It's very the framing is exactly where it wants, and the camera moves very smoothly, quote unquote camera. I know it's an animated film. In this one, the style they chose was like handheld, like how they shoot Battlestar Galactica, or it's like the camera's barely like keeping up with the dragon, and I think it really works. I think it is great in terms of selling you on the realism of these characters, and all the dragon stuff was awesome in this movie. And Jeff, you say if we're gonna watch How to Train Your Dragon, this is not the one I'm putting on. I don't know. Like, first of all, I don't even know if that's true for me. Just like me, David Chen.
Wow.
And secondly, I feel like if I watched this movie as a kid and I never watched the animated film, like this might be one of those touchstone movies like Willow or The Goonies or what, where it's like, oh, like, wow, what an incredible adventure movie that was.
Sure.
Neil Druckmann talks about a conversation he had with Craig Mazin when they were making the Last of Us TV show. And look, I think the Last of Us Part 1 video game is brilliant video game, amazing story. And Craig Mazin said something along. Craig Mazin, by the way, helped to create the Last of Us TV show. Neil Druckmann made the Last of Us video game, and Craig Mazin said something along the lines of, "This can be the most brilliant story in the world, but there's millions of people that will never experience it because they're never going to pick up a controller." And that's why we want to tell the story on TV. Now, I realize these are both movies, so I understand it's not the same comparison.
Yeah.
But I do think probably that there's some people, How to Train Your Dragon, the original movie, is like, 20 years old at this point. There are people that are just never going to watch a 20-year-old animated film. And this is a movie that, in my opinion, captures the spirit, the thrills, the exhilaration of the original, in a cinematic language that people of this generation understand and it's more accessible to them. And so for me, this wasn't as a colossal waste of time as you guys said.
What about the cinematic language was different, other than being a little more dynamic with the flying?
It's in live action. It's with modern day visuals.
I know. I think that's the problem, Dave. Is that if the goal was what you just stated, I would be 100% for it. But then you go about making this movie in a different way. Like, if the goal is, let's bring this story to a more modern audience, then you don't just do it exactly the same. And you don't
even need a spoiler section for this movie. Because
what's that?
We don't need a spoiler section. We could just talk about like everything.
Yeah, you should assume we're going to spoil. But Jeff, this is like when Ramin Djawadi was asked to write the theme song for House of the Dragon, and he just sent in his score for the original Game of Thrones theme song, and he's like, I already made it perfect the first time. It's like so many of the decisions they made back then were already great. There's no need to change them.
But he didn't do anything.
I don't think that those. But that's I think that's a false analogy, because you can say that the story beat decisions are still excellent. That the some of the shot composition is still exactly how you would want to do it. I'm down with all of that. You don't try to make everything look exactly the same. You don't try. This is literally just, hey, these things have come to life. That is all that they're doing. Look, it came to life. Not, hey, let's make this for a modern audience. Let's imagine what this world. I've in talking about it, I've come to my thesis statement, which is
hit it.
There is no, what if this world was real? What if this world was we actually took a camera to Burke and we shot it? That is not how this movie was made. You could even do that and have it still be cartoony and vibrant and colorful. You don't have to like desaturate it and make it look like Game of Thrones, right? You could still make it, but what if we actually took a camera to Burke and shot this? Is not how this movie was made.
Tell me, give me an example. I'm not disagreeing, but just give me an example of where you felt that
literally how every character looks.
I agree. Dude, I've already conceded that. I agree. Right. I don't like the costumes.
I think that's a big part of it. I think it's a huge, inescapable part of it.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Honestly, I have a big disagreement with you with regard to Toothless, because it is super weird to me that every other dragon in the movie seems to have been made to look more realistic.
And
this
scarier.
one is still a cartoon character. And I understand that decision in that, you know, Toothless has an iconic look. We're going to keep it, and it, you know, we can't sort of like, but it just it feels very out of place in this movie to me.
I do think it's a missed opportunity to not modernize Toothless in some way, to distinguish Toothless.
Or make it look... I never believed that character exists. It felt like a cartoon character. Like its facial expressions are all very much the cartoon. And listen, I love the cartoon. This is not a... I'm not ranking the cartoon lower in my estimation. I love that expression of the character and that whole world that is created in the cartoon version. Please, listeners, don't mistake my thing for saying, oh, they could have, you know, transcended the cartoon. I'm saying if you're going to do it, think about it in a little bit of a different way, and maybe have an alternative that is an equally interesting. And you know, if your take is, hey, we're going to do this for a modern audience and make it look like this place is real. I never believed this place was real, right? It just looks like the cartoon. And when you're in live action, suddenly I'm starting to think, what do they eat? Where's the farms? How does this world work? Because in the cartoon, I'm not thinking those things, because it's got a different rule set. You know, it's got different dynamics and logic. And here, it's just the cartoon made flesh and bone. And that it just doesn't hold together for me in that way.
It's funny, Jeff, because
where I disagree with you, Jeff, is the reconceptualization of Toothless. I understand the complaint, but I think we've seen what you're talking about. It's called the Lion King live action remake, and it sucked. The characters were not expressive because they tried to make them like actual animals, and real life animals do not smile and, you know, do the things.
There's an in between, man.
So maybe this whole endeavor is dumb.
Maybe we should just not do it. So many red flags here. To what you're saying, Jeff, I've seen interviews with the director where they're like, yeah, we tried to make this feel like a real lived-in world. Like, so they say they tried to do the things you said, but I also agree that I don't think it worked, because none of it felt believable or real or anything. It's not terrible. It's not bad.
It's not.
It's like
it's
so
not.
many
it's just
missed opportunities. Or why does this exist? Yeah.
So we don't need to. We're not going to do a spoiler bumper thing, because everyone already knows how this movie ends. So like, you should assume we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the ending of the movie starting right now. Okay, so like, put that out there. But I thought the ending was incredible in this movie. Like the sort of massive dragon that comes in is, in my opinion, so much more threatening and terrifying than in the original, which I've recently watched. And they're both amazing sequences. But in this one, in my opinion, which you guys don't have to agree with, the trying to make it look more live action really is additive. Like those two scenes, when you compare them next to each other, the live action one really does feel, in my opinion, more visceral today, more exciting in some ways than the original did. They're both great, but like, there's something about, you know, they really changed the design. They made it more.
It's a Godzilla movie.
It feels like larger. Basically. The teeth are really gnarly. You know. So I thought the final action sequence was really impressive, and to me, this movie, How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, showed how a live action remake can be additive. I agree that there's problems. I think the looks of the characters are real bad and pull me out of the film. But this was the first time where I actually realized what the potential of a live action remake could be. Of like, oh wow, like it really does feel different. Just the act of redesigning these dragons a little bit and making this feel more like from our planet really does.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Is that I don't know if additive is the word there. It's just different. Is the thing. To me, additive means you're effectively changing the formula of what happens. Like this movie has the same gaping plot holes that sort of the original did too. Like stuff is happening at the Dragon Island. Now the kids have to ride these new dragons, and they just do it in like 5 minutes, right? They befriend these dragons, which they have been trained by birth to kill, and they learn how to fly them all the way to the island safely in the matter of minutes. And I feel like that's the sort of thing where, like, okay, you're trying to be more realistic. Be more realistic. Explain that. Give me a reason for that happening. And this movie doesn't do it because it's following the exact same script as the original, basically.
I will actually grant you, Dave, a lot of the things that you said regarding the end of the movie and that giant dragon at the end.
Yeah.
Which makes me, I think, even more disappointed that they didn't attempt to do anything like that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could actually, I think, be a little daring with Toothless and make that character actually a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wouldn't it be interesting if you have this real human being risking their life instead of encountering a puppy dog? You know, the Night Fury is supposed to be this terrifying thing. And in the context of the cartoon, like it's all goofy, right? All the dragons have googly eyes and are, you know, flopping around and being silly.
Right.
And that's fine. And that's fun. And I love it. And it's cool. And then Toothless shows up and it's a puppy dog, right?
Yeah. Remember Dragonheart, guys?
Yeah.
Not a great movie, but I felt for Dragonheart.
Get a little Sean Connery.
It is true, Jeff, that a lot of the dragons in this movie that weren't toothless were way scarier than Toothless. I agree.
Yes.
That is a weird.
And I get it. You're making a kid's movie about, I mean, that it literally is a metaphor for pet ownership, right?
Yeah.
I get it. And that's why I love the original it just makes you feel like any pet you've ever had is just, I remember my puppy. But if you're doing it live action, instead of having Toothless be this cartoon, you know, dog, you could actually make it feel like, oh my gosh, this kid is taking his life in his hands to do something daring and bold. And again, that's a take, right? Maybe it's not the take that would work best, but at least it's a take. And this movie has no take. It's literally just, let's do it again.
Even just changing that a bit, Jeff. Toothless is not dog-like. Toothless is cat-like.
Well, I think he's both. I think he's both.
Cat stuff.
He's a little both. He has qualities of both.
I'm just not a cat person, so I made a dog.
My
headcanon is dog.
Show, like the anime version, like lean more into the cat stuff. The way the eyes work, the way he moves and sleeps, basically, like burns and cuddles together. If they had leaned more dog-like, make it a more angular, you know, creature rather than completely all round. Like it's made to look round and friendly, but that character model looks not much different than the animated one too. Yeah,
I believe more weird. That Falcor exists than Toothless. You know,
Falcor.
I do think there are other elements of commerce that do play into this. You guys are right? Like they just have this epic Universal theme park open where like Toothless is everywhere in that.
He looks like Toothless. He's got to look like Toothless.
Imagine if they had like a different design. It wouldn't make any sense, right? So,
you're not wrong. I get that, but
but I understand. I understand what your point is. That it's a missed opportunity to kind of have a take on Toothless.
Show the kids the never-ending story. Get some childhood trauma in them.
Okay, let me put this out there. I did find it interesting that despite being like mostly a shot-for-shot remake, the movie's half an hour longer. What goes into the half an hour? I have some answers for you. One of them is a lot of the scenes are paced slower.
Yes.
Because there's stuff that you can do in animation that's like you can just do like hit beat, and it just doesn't work that quickly in live action. And so as a result, the music has to change. Like they had to extend many of the tracks from the original into longer tracks. And it's kind of interesting just as a filmmaking exercise to see some of these differences.
I think it's a mistake. I think 2 hours is a long time for kids to be in a movie.
I agree. Theater. And I watched this with my 5-year-old nephew, and he was super restless.
So is my daughter. She was bopping around by the end. Like it's hard.
I think the first hour genuinely drags. Like it takes us a while to get to the Toothless stuff and training Toothless and everything. Yeah.
I do think it was a mistake to have the whole first fight sequence at night too. I did not love that.
Yes, I agree.
It did not look great in my opinion. It's much easier to pull that off in animation than it is in live action. Okay. We also get a little bit more backstory for like Astrid and their relationship develops a little bit more. Where I am really excited, which I know you guys are not in this mental space, but just stream with me for a little bit, is clearly they have shown that they're willing to okay, in my opinion, you guys don't necessarily agree,
Oh,
but I
boy.
think they have shown that they're willing to like make some tweaks to the story, which they did in this movie. They didn't, nothing major changed, but they were like, hey, we're going to tweak some things around the edges. The second How to Train Your Dragon live action remake has already been greenlit.
Oh,
and
God.
that movie, the original How to Train Your Dragon 2 animated version, was okay, decent, but the story was kind of messy. And I think a large part of it is because the mom character, who's played by Cate Blanchett, was originally conceived as the villain of that story. And then in spoiler for How to Train Your Dragon 2, but she ends up not being the villain in that story. And I'll leave it at that. I am really curious if they're going to change it, and if they're going to like make it more interesting. Now, certainly nothing we've seen here indicates that, but
they've done nothing brave.
But they could. That would be so cool. That would be so cool.
That would be great.
The live action version would be great. Redeemed some of the mistakes.
I will eat my words if that happens. David.
Mark this. Mark
I will
this
eat
time.
My words if that happens.
Yeah.
I give it about a 1% chance of happening.
Okay. All right. Well, if it does, that would be incredible. Right? If the live action version of the story was much more interesting than the animated version, that would be like.
But that's what I wanted for this one.
Yeah, I know. But the story was already perfect, Jeff. The story was already perfect.
Yeah, I agree. But the one
also,
that really
wouldn't it be
needs
super
help,
badass if Cate Blanchett was in How to Train Your Dragon 2?
I mean, that would be
amazing
as the mom.
As the mom, that would be like wow. Like I can't
it's funny too, though,
that
they retain the joke from this one about how big her bosoms are.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
We know what she looks like from anyway. But the one that really needs help is 3. Like page 1 rewrite on 3. Can we do that?
Really? You didn't like 3? I thought 3 was better than 2 personally.
Oh, I disagree. I think they increasingly decline. Personally,
I completely forgot about 3.
No, I like 3 a lot better than 2.
I thought 3 was... I liked 2. I liked 2. I didn't love 2. I liked 2. I thought 3 was actually not.
I just want to see some live action dragon humping going on in 3 because that's really what that's all about.
It is a lot of yes.
Anyway. Also going to say that, I'll just give one other shout out before we wrap this up, which is that the score of the movie is substantially different. And some of the changes are actually really cool. Test Drive, one of the most popular tracks. There's a really different take on that track in this movie. And I don't think that this score is necessarily better than the original, but this I will grant you, Devindra, it's different. And that is interesting in some ways. So,
anyway. And it's hard not to like be swept away by John Powell's themes here, like all the flying tracks, the big climactic stuff. Like it works. It's really good and thrilling because it was good and thrilling before. It's just it's a little different now.
All right, folks. Any other thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon, the live action remake? I feel like
we gotta put money down on the second live action remake being like better.
Yeah, I'm willing to put money down.
Different in any way. How about
different in any way?
Yeah.
I actually think there's a high possibility it's going to happen. Because I think that this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to go back and fix your own movie, and I think you have to take it.
Anyway. I would like for them to take it. I don't have any confidence.
But the thing is, I don't think there were any major story flaws in How to Train Your Dragon 1. There are in How to Train Your Dragon 2. You know what I mean?
I think that's a solid, logical position to take, David. That this one
you don't agree with it, but
this one don't need to be fixed. That one do.
Yes,
but I have no confidence that any of the people will do that.
There were things that could have been fixed in this one. They didn't. They just kept going.
That's true too.
All right, folks. At the end of the day, despite everything we have just said, it is really impressive that Dean DeBlois made a movie, remade his own movie,
made his own movie again.
Made his own movie again. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.